Well, ladies and gentlemen, we finally got there. The Ukrainian mineral deal has been signed. It is official. February 28th. Can you believe that? That's when it was originally supposed to be signed, with Zelensky coming into the White House and Trump having the spat with him and Vance saying you need to be grateful and him getting kicked out and then going on Fox News and then going straight to the United Kingdom. It's kind of funny, but we're going to go over this. I'm also going to go over the Michael Waltz news. Michael Waltz is now out of the Trump administration. Talk about that a little bit. But first, you can see Ukraine and the United States sign economic and reconstruction deal. The deal is intended to give the U.S. access to proceeds from Ukraine's reserves for rare earth minerals. And there you can see that is a Ukrainian uranium mine. And so going over this is extremely vague, and I'm going to approach this a few different ways in terms of my expectation for this deal and what ended up happening. It does seem like there was some serious compromise from Trump and the administration when it comes to this Ukrainian deal. Because originally there was a fight when it comes to this deal. Was the amount of resources and everything that the United States gave Ukraine, was that considered a grant or a loan? Zelensky said it was a grant, so they don't have to repay it. And we know that Trump will say it's $300 billion. Ukraine and the European countries say it's $120 billion. The correct number is around $190 billion. I believe that's in what we've given Ukraine to fight Russia. Now, liberals will say that's money well spent because we're proxy weakening a foreign adversary, when in reality, the European countries, a lot of like the UK and others, they do the loan deals to where they get their money back. We didn't do that. We did it's a grant. So, and that was the argument. The problem is this deal doesn't get our money back. It's not like, well, we're owed $180 billion in rare earths because that's how much we've given them in military aid. Because that's what originally we thought it was, because it's a loan, we get it back. Zelensky's like, no, it's a grant. This deal is focused on the future and whatever we give Ukraine from now or maybe like the past few months onward, because we did start giving them the security briefings and all the intel and obviously money and weapons, things like that, after they agreed to a 30-day ceasefire, because they did agree to it. We got to be fair to Ukraine. They're the ones that agreed to the 30-day ceasefire. It was a total ceasefire for negotiations. Putin did not. He said, I want to agree to it, but I have to talk to Trump. Then he said, I don't want to agree to a ceasefire because it's not going to amount to anything. And so when it comes to something like this, it's kind of a weird deal, because the goal originally was to get the United States the money back through the rare earths and mining, which that in and of itself could be a problem, because there has to be an investment into mining. So there has to be an upfront investment to be able to extract the rare earths. On top of that, when it comes to rare earths, the United States really doesn't have a problem in locating rare earths within the United States. Rare earths are not necessarily rare. The issue is the refinement of rare earths. And I'm not saying we don't want to diversify the rare earths and get them from other places. Trust me, I want the United States to acquire Greenland. I get it. But Greenland's a lot of a different, it's a different story when you're talking about tying the United States to this region, whether this will have an effect on how Russia approaches. People are saying, well, this will be good for a peace deal. Well, I'm not sure if it will be, because Ukraine was already ready to negotiate, I feel like, as is, just without this mineral deal. Now, you could say this minerals deal is good for us because we're gaining access to more rare earths, and it's just going to make us money once we have an investment into the area. But we know how Ukraine is and Eastern Europe is in general in terms of the amount of corruption. And is it really worth it? Now, I'm not saying, because people are like, well, it's going to tether us to a war if something happens to where there's a peace deal and then Russia breaks the peace deal and now the United States is involved because our minerals are there and we have to protect them. Because you look at the rare earths on a map, they're throughout all of Ukraine. It's not like they're just on the western side, the eastern side. They're all throughout. And there's a lot of oil and gas in the Donbass as well, which is why I thought there might have been an energy deal with Russia, and there might be, we'll see. But this deal is not necessarily what I thought it was going to be. Now, look, if you're talking about Trump's a businessman, the idea is that this is why it's better than what liberals were doing. Liberals were just giving Russia, or excuse me, giving Ukraine money for nothing. And it was, well, their proxy weakening a foreign adversary. That's the deal. At least now Trump has said, I want to stand up for the country a little bit. We need to get something for us giving you the money. Unfortunately, it doesn't predate it to where we can extract, but it's weird anyways, because if you're extracting rare earths, it costs money to mine them in the first place. So there's going to be a U.S. investment, we would think. And then I believe it's a 50-50 split in terms of the rare earths that get mined, which you would say that that's probably a good deal for Ukraine because you tie the United States to the region. Now, there's really no security guarantees beyond the war ending when it comes to this deal, because I know Trump does not want to tether the United States to patrolling eastern Ukraine in terms of another conflict between Russia and Ukraine. That's not what Trump wants. You would ideally want the United States out of the region entirely. And we basically are. I mean, I don't view our mining situation in Ukraine as like, oh, if another war happens, we've got to help Ukraine guarantee because we got to protect our rare earths. Trump said he thinks they can make the 190 or $200 billion back in rare earths. We'll have to see. But there is a question, is it worth it to do this? I mean, that's why these deals, there's murkiness. I can understand and I can appreciate we're getting ripped off in terms of us not getting anything in return, to where a lot of these other countries that are investing into Ukraine are, because they're loans. With us, it's a grant. So it becomes a bit of a problem. So we're trying to get something in return. So I get it. But this is a weird deal. And there was a major concession by Trump where it doesn't predate, and it's not like they owe us $180 billion. This is just going forward, how much we give them. That's what we're going to get back, apparently, in rare earths. And again, the thing with rare earths is the refinement of the rare earths. That's extremely important. And right now, we don't have refinement zones set up to be able to handle an extreme amount of rare earths. But maybe that'll change, and I think Trump wants to invest around $20 billion in changing that, so we'll see. But that's also an environmental problem. So this is a deal that it's been in the pipeline, and now it's happening. And I do think it's a step forward. Is it the best thing ever in terms of peace? I mean, to me, it's a Russia thing. And it's funny because you look at liberals and what they say, they're like, well, if you look at Trump's 7-point plan, the peace plan, it's all favored for Russia. Well, Russia doesn't want to sign that peace deal because, interestingly enough, they think that they're, based off of their expenditures in this war, they should have more land or more power within eastern Ukraine. So there's a lot of Russian demands. That's why they're really not coming to the negotiating table right now. Now, maybe they will in the future, hopefully within the next few weeks, but they're really not negotiating. And they're really the country that's holding this up. It is Russia. It's not Ukraine. And you would figure this deal will only motivate Ukraine more, which ties the United States to the region. You're going to have some security assurance inevitably from the NATO European countries, not from the United States. The United States is not going to be involved in security guarantees for Ukraine. But the European NATO countries are, and the UK will. So you're going to have that, and you're going to potentially be able to join the EU. Now, we don't know where Russia stands on those negotiations. Russia is, they're demanding a lot right now in terms of, they keep talking about potentially limiting Ukraine's power in terms of the amount of military they're able to have. Would they try and restrict them, just like they're trying to do with restricting them from joining NATO, and it's worked? Would they try and restrict them from joining the EU? We don't know. But this is not like, oh, let's do this deal with Ukraine to get them to the negotiating table. I believe, and this is just an outsider looking in, I believe they're already ready to negotiate. I mean, they're the ones that agreed to a ceasefire, a 30-day ceasefire, full ceasefire. Not an infrastructure ceasefire, not an energy ceasefire, a full ceasefire. Russia didn't. So you could say, well, there's really no downside for Trump to do this other than we're just being able to extract more rare earths, and that gives us more assets. And I agree. And Trump's the deal maker. That's what he so this is Trump sticking up for America. I understand it. But I'm just saying, tying ourselves to the region, we're going to have some form of U.S. investment to be able to mine them. And there's also going to be Ukrainian investment, considering it's a 50, I think it's a 50-50 split in terms of the extraction of the rare earths and what the United States gets back. So that is just the rare earth deal. And we will have to see if that kickstarts any momentum to end the conflict. But again, it seems like it's more of a Russian problem than a Ukrainian problem. See, if Russia wanted to negotiate and Ukraine was saying no, 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 and then we do this deal with Ukraine, I would say, yeah, this is looking pretty bullish that we're going to have a deal. But before the minerals deal, the dynamic was Ukraine. It seemed like they were more willing to negotiate. Now, it changes every day. I mean, one day you've got Zelensky wanting to buy Patriot missile packages for $15 billion. A lot of it's posturing, I get it, but, and then the next day he's ready to negotiate. So at least you've secured Ukrainian interest in negotiating. The question, though, and it's been the question for like the past 2 weeks, 3 weeks, really, and Trump's been going at the rhetoric of Putin needs to stop doing this, stop bombing these cities. It's not, Trump is now starting to go against Putin, and they're talking about sanctions against Russia. Not that those would work, but there's potentially going to have to be some level of threat against Russia. It seems like Putin is being pressured to continue this to give them a more advantageous position. So when they negotiate a peace deal, they will be able to accomplish more of the goals that they originally set out to accomplish when they launched the full-scale invasion in 2022. There was already fighting in the Donbass since 2014, but the actual invasion after the annexation of Crimea happened in 2022, which was a full-scale Eastern Ukrainian invasion. So that's just the situation. And listen, the minerals deal, maybe it will kickstart momentum, but we'll see. You've also got National Security Advisor Michael Waltz and his deputy Alex Wong leaving their posts at the White House. And so if you go back to the signal leak controversy that came out, I thought Waltz handled it very, very badly when he went on Fox News. By the way, I thought Hegseth also handled it very badly. There was very little accountability with either of them. But it was widely reported that there was infighting between Waltz and Hegseth. There were other things that came out within the past few weeks about Hegseth, most notably that Hegseth was on Trump's side and Tulsi Gabbard's side and J.D. Vance's side in terms of being against joint military strikes against Iran with Israel. And then you also had other potential signal leaks with Waltz texting his mom and other people. And so, or no, that was Hegseth. They were really trying to target Hegseth, but Hegseth has survived, and it was Hegseth against Waltz. Well, now Waltz is out, and so is Wong. And it's interesting, if you go back to that screenshot where it showed that Michael Waltz added the Atlantic reporter to the group, they blamed it on Wong. So it's both of them. So this might be the signal issue, and it's just the remnants of it. And so Waltz is a neocon. He is extremely aggressive when it comes to foreign wars. Not that he would have a crazy impact in the administration, but you're going to have a level of influence. So we'll see who Trump replaces him with, but this is something that we're not too sad about in terms of Waltz leaving. But it'll be interesting to see the replacement. There's been some rumors, but it's going to take some time. So either way, guys, that's just the situation in terms of that. And look, you have the signal leak. There's some other things that happened. It is what it is. But guys, make sure you like this video down below. That's going to do it for this one. And follow me on X. Link to that's in the description.